Hello and welcome to Take Me Home, the podcast offering a social democratic alternative for the politically homeless. My name is Sebastian Moore.
And I'm hilary.salt.
And we've had a busy day in the office today.
Wow, very busy, yes.
Does Hilary look tired?
You know, it was one of those days with the printer, wasn't it, where you feel like you're in a battle with the printer.
Yeah, but it's good. It feels like... So we've been doing a letter for your council campaign.
That's right.
Hilary is running to be a councillor next May.
Correct.
And it's quite nice that it's a reminder that there is some sort of old-fashioned proper campaigning that still has to be done.
That's right, yes.
It's good.
Yeah.
You know, delivering letters,
Exactly.
hand-signed letters to voters.
And we've had other members in to help us, haven't we?
We have indeed. Big shout out to those people that have come in and helped.
Yeah.
Okay, today we're doing a news item episode for the first time in a while because we've had quite a few interviews back to back.
We have.
But we thought we need to do a news episode. And there's a couple of things going on. So what are you going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about there's a survey was launched yesterday about people's attitudes to British sovereignty. And I want to talk about that.
Okay, interesting. And some surprising results.
Yes, quite surprising, yeah.
And I'll kick us off. And I'm going to be talking about the absolute remarkable story in America where Democrat politicians have had to flee the state of Texas.
Wow.
Which is just... I don't know if the news have covered this a lot. I've seen it in one or two news outlets, and Trump's commented and so on. But I feel like this news item is a really exciting thing. But it's the sort of thing that I think in 2025 can just kind of fly under the radar because so much other crazy stuff is happening. So I thought it would be good to pour some attention on it.
Yes, there's a lot going on, isn't there, in the UK? So certainly for me, trying to keep up with international news as well, I find a bit of a struggle sometimes.
Have you seen anything about this story?
I've not really, no.
Okay, well, this is your chance.
I'm learning.
Okay, so basically, the state of Texas are redrawing congressional districts. So you know how in America you've got the upper house and the lower house?
Yes.
Both are voted for. So you've got the senators, there's 2 senators that represent each state. 50 states, 100 senators, that's the upper house.
Okay.
And that's done on two senators for each state. So it's sort of, no matter how small you are as a state, you still get 2 senators.
Okay.
Whereas the House of Representatives, is a little bit more like our parliament. So it's the lower house. And there are certain states like Texas have the right, whoever's in power at the time, and at the moment, the governor of Texas is a guy called Greg Abbott, who's a Republican. And the Republicans hold a majority. And they have the right to redraw the congressional districts. Now, they've submitted a proposal for this.
Okay.
And it would see that they basically are most likely to gain 5 House seats. Right? So in the UK... comparison would be something like if, because Labour in power in Manchester, they were able to redraw the constituencies for a general election, and it would see that all of the Manchester constituencies went to Labour, all of the Greater Manchester ones.
Right, okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so it's gerrymandering.
It is gerrymandering, yes. Have you heard of gerrymandering?
I have, yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of gerrymandering.
Okay.
Do you know where it comes from?
Ireland.
No.
Oh,
why do you think Ireland?
I don't know. I had no idea it was something to do with Ireland.
So it goes back to 1812.
Okay.
And it's named after the vice president of the US back then, who was a guy called Elbridge Gerry, not Jerry. So it should be gerrymandering, firstly.
Oh, right, okay.
But I think we can accept now that it's been referred to as gerrymandering for so long. So I'll call it gerrymandering. And he signed off on a plan to change the congressional seats for the state of Massachusetts. And it saw this particular one here. I'll try and flash up an image on the screen if this doesn't come out properly. Can you see that seat? And the Boston Gazette at the time said they were sort of outraged by this. They printed this seat, this outline, and they drew what looked like a mythical salamander. And the headline was, "It's a gerrymander," so named after the vice president who signed off on this.
Okay.
And he was actually reluctant to do so, which is interesting. So he's remembered for pretty much one thing, which is quite a negative thing because people don't really like gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Even though he was reluctant to do so. So I'll explain why this comes about. So if you take an area like Texas, for example, generally the cities will vote Democrat and the rural areas will vote Republican. I think this is true in the UK. More metropolitan areas tend to vote Labour.
Yeah.
More rural areas tend to vote Conservative.
Yeah.
Everything's sort of up in the air at the moment, and I think we are seeing the political maps change slightly.
Yeah.
But I'll show you this. This is a really good and very simple explanation. I don't know if you've seen this before. So it shows just 50 precincts, and it says, imagine if you've got 60% of them are blue and 40% are red.
Okay.
So you'd expect 60% of the seats to be blue and 40% of red, or there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
If you draw the districts in a certain way,
Yeah.
you can contrive it so that there are 5 districts that are all blue.
Right.
So blue now wins 5-0. Or you can do some very weird lines, and you'll see here, this one is majority red, so that wins.
Yeah.
This one's majority red, and so is this. So they actually win 3-2.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can do this by basically 2 ways. You've got cracking and packing. So packing is where you take a really high density area for a demographic that tends to vote one way, and you can see this here, and you pack all of those voters into one area.
Okay.
Basically what that does is it guarantees that party a seat, but it has a lot of wasted votes in it.
Okay.
So in the UK example, you take something like centre of Manchester and say we're going to draw a line right round there and all of the young urban professional areas, right, and guarantee votes for, let's say, Labour.
Yep.
And you'd pack them all into one area so that their voting power is diminished.
Okay.
Now, cracking is the sort of the opposite, where you take that and you split them up, but make sure that they're not a majority in the new areas.
Okay.
So cracking has been done in states like Utah, for example, where Salt Lake City, which is the state capital of Utah, used to be a Democrat congressional seat.
Yeah.
But they've cracked it. So there is no Salt Lake City now. It's cracked into 4 different areas, all with huge rural areas.
Yeah.
So now Utah is just 100% Republican.
Okay.
In terms of congressional districts.
So packing means putting all the opposition into one constituency, so they just win one.
Yeah. And their voting power is diminished because they can't affect other places.
Yeah. And cracking is splitting them all up so they don't win any.
Exactly.
Okay, got it?
Yeah. So that's gerrymandering in a nutshell, very simplistic form of it. I want to show you, before I move on to the story, with why these Democrats have fled, I want to show you my favourite gerrymandered state.
Okay.
This is Maryland's 3rd congressional district.
Okay.
That is 1 congressional district, that purple area.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that
so it
amazing?
doesn't even all join up?
Well, it does. It has to. So if you look really carefully, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah.
It is contiguous, so you can follow it all the way around.
Okay.
But it's remarkable how on some bits it's literally just a road that connects.
Wow. Thank you very much.
It's a little show and tell today, isn't
It's
it?
a lovely colour, that as well. Do you like that colour?
Okay, so what's happened recently? So they've tried to pass this bill to redraw the lines, the districts, and the Democrats have basically boycotted it. Now,
see, I think that's why I got confused with Ireland, because boycott is something to do with Ireland, isn't it?
is it
Yes, that's another thing that's named after somebody.
really?
That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, boycott and gerrymandering.
Yeah.
I don't know the etymology for boycott.
Okay, well, maybe look
Next
it up
episode.
for next time. Yeah.
Next episode.
Yeah.
So they have boycotted the vote, which means that there is no longer a quorum. So they cannot, by law, pass this vote with just the Republicans that are remaining. So they'd have to have a certain number of people there, a certain number of representatives there before they can pass it.
Okay.
Now, the Democrats, knowing what the governor would be likely to do, have all fled to Democratic states.
When you say they fled,
They chartered a plane
oh wow.
and they flew out of the state. Most of them going to Illinois, And J.B. Pritzker, who's the billionaire Democratic governor, has said, "You're welcome here," and done some press conferences with them. Others have gone to New York, which is a very friendly place for them.
Okay.
Since then, a couple of things have happened. So the Texas has voted to arrest them.
Oh, wow.
So the Texas Rangers
Yeah.
have been told to arrest them if they are in Texas. The problem is that they only have control in Texas.
Yeah.
And they can only say what happens there. They've lobbied to Kash Patel, who's the director of the FBI, who's a Trump appointee, to use the FBI to track them down. Trump has come out and said, I think the latest thing, this was today, he said, we may have to, in response to whether...
So what law have they broken? Have they broken the law?
I think they've not broken the law, but the Texas have now passed something to say it's against the law. I think something like that.
Right. Okay.
In Texas law, but this isn't federal law.
Okay.
From my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm not a lawyer or a legal scholar. What I find interesting then is that, and we've talked about this a lot, and I think we're in a position to kind of take the middle ground on certain issues. That doesn't mean always sit on the fence. It means to recognise that there are some crazy positions on one side and crazy ones on the other side. I think in many ways we've said quite positive things about the Trump administration, which kind of goes against a lot of the liberal mainstream media that we hear here in the UK. This is one where it's sort of reverting to the stereotype. You know, the Republicans, I think that by stereotype are the sort of conniving politicians that redraw the state lines to favour them. And they're staying true to form. But it's not just the Republicans. The Democrats have done it in states. So Illinois is an example of that. Maryland, I showed you just then, that's a Democratic area. But what we have to do is we have to have ways of rising above this. Interestingly, there's been a couple of responses, and I think the responses often say more than the news story itself. So Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has come out and said, we'll fight fire with fire, and he's tabling a motion to try and look at California's congressional districts because they have the power to do so in California. Certain states have independent bodies that draw the lines. Now, this is similar to what we have in the UK.
Yes.
So this is a news story where my solution is sort of what we already have.
Yeah.
And I think it's a positive thing because a lot of the time we're very negative about what's going on in the UK. I think the Boundary Commission is a good thing. And the Boundary Commission sets the constituency boundaries. Now, it is a problem in the UK anyway, the fact that you are going to see a large constituency of voters grouped in certain areas and their voting power will be diminished. But that's not done by the politicians that are trying to increase their chances of being elected.
The governments tend to just lean a little on the Boundary Commission, though, don't they?
They do. Yeah, that happened with David Cameron.
Yeah.
When he redrew the lines, there was a bit of a scandal about that. Yeah, it's very difficult because when you say something is independent, of course, how independent is it?
Yes.
But I haven't got a better solution than having an independent body decide these things.
No.
Well, I have. I've got one more solution.
Okay.
Proportional representation.
Yes, of course.
Because with proportional representation, there's no point in gerrymandering. It renders it completely useless.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that chart I had here where it said, we're trying to draw districts.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just take every individual voter and say, what do you want? And then afterwards, we count up the number of votes and say, right, you got 60% of the votes, so you get 60% of the seats.
Yeah.
That seems like a crazily simple solution. And it would bypass a lot of these problems.
Yes, yeah. So what's next in this saga?
Well, I mean, Trump has said when asked about it, and what's next in this saga? Well, the answer will be something to do with Trump, right?
Right, okay.
Like, because Trump never stays out of anything.
No, that's true.
Right, and of course the press love it, so they've been asking him about it. And his answer was to say, well, the Democrats have been doing this for ages. And I think, listen very carefully to politicians. And when their answer is, well, the other side do it as well, what they're saying is, yes, this thing we've done is bad.
Yeah.
Right, that's the subtext. And I think we have to get better at understanding what politicians are saying.
Okay.
right? And we can hold them to account a bit more in that regard. Yes, the Democrats have done it. That doesn't change anything in regards to Texas
No.
and this current situation. What's interesting is Arnold Schwarzenegger has come out massively in against this, and he has been for years against gerrymandering.
Okay.
So he's sort of standing up, fighting against Gavin Newsom. Obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger was previous Republican governor of California, as well as standing up against Greg Abbott in Texas. So who'd have thought Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the news?
Yeah. So watch this space, I guess, then. See what happens next.
Yeah, I'll keep us updated.
Yeah. Okay, great. Good. Right, I'm going to put that down. We okay to move on?
Absolutely.
So I mentioned at the start that I wanted to talk about this survey.
Yes.
So this is a survey. The brains behind this survey is Dr. Richard Johnson, who we met at the Legsit conference we mentioned him a few weeks ago, from Queen Mary's University of London.
Yeah.
And the survey's actually been conducted by YouGov, so it's kind of got all the hygiene that you'd expect around a proper survey. And what it's trying to look at is what is the British public's attitude to British sovereignty. So it's gone and asked a lot of questions around who should make the rules. So this survey has been conducted around 4,500 UK adults, and it's asked them a lot in relation to a lot of different issues. Who should set the rules? Should it be the UK government on its own? The UK government entering into ad hoc arrangements with other countries? Or should those rules be set by an international body as a kind of binding requirement? Really interestingly, the 20 questions that were posed of people only got 10 each, so you didn't have to answer 20, but different people got different selection of the 20 questions. But the overall results of those 20 questions is that in all of them, the answer was Britain should set the rules itself. And I think it was 17, it was an absolute majority. And in 3, it was a plurality. You had to explain to me what that meant, didn't you? So that's the highest vote, even though it may be less than 50%.
Yeah, because there were 4 options.
Yes, correct.
So the top option might have scored 46%. It's not an absolute majority, but still the highest out of any of those 4 options.
Correct. Yeah. So that's really interesting. That when you pose a question in that way, that's the kind of answer you get. Because another way that you might have posed that question is, do you still support Brexit? And the problem with asking a question like that is it is very polarising, and people still have perhaps quite tribal attitudes to Brexit. But when you ask about some of the principles that I think for many of us were behind a Brexit vote, you do get quite interesting responses that do suggest that people do overwhelmingly support the idea of Britain being able to make its own rules.
Yeah, and what you're saying now, I think, will speak to people and go, yeah, we should be making our own rules. But some of these categories, which I'm sure you're going to go on to, I have to say, I was really surprised.
Yes.
Even things like AI regulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
People were saying, no, it should be Britain deciding what's in Britain's best interests.
Absolutely. I think there were a few where, it wasn't such an overwhelmingly yes response, like AI and things like data protection. And I think obviously people have in mind the idea that a lot of those are big, global cross-border things where maybe it's not entirely possible for the UK to set its own rules on its own. But some of the other categories are things like rail nationalisation, whether or not we should be able to set our own VAT rates and tax rates, trade policy, things like employment law. So a whole range of different topics. And we can put some links in the show notes to where people can look at the actual responses. But it is really surprising that the answer was, as I said, overwhelmingly positive view that it should be the UK that sets the rules. And even when you dig down into the different people responding to the survey, even people who had voted Remain, the majority of people of the answer to the questions was that it should be Britain who sets the rules.
So that's
which is very
people that voted Remain in 2016.
Yeah.
When polled in this survey,
Yeah.
the majority of those people said that in these 20 categories, it should be Britain setting its rules.
Of the majority of the questions,
Yeah.
there was a support for Britain to set the rules themselves. Yeah. So that's surprising. Some of the kind of ways in which they tried to slice and dice the data, not a lot of class difference, interestingly, so not a lot of difference for people's socioeconomic class. There was some difference on different party loyalties. So the highest level of support, so 20 out of 20 of the questions, there was support for Britain's sovereignty, was amongst the Conservative voters. Labour voters, 15 of the 20 questions. Really surprisingly, I thought the Liberal Democrats, 17 of the 20 questions.
So that's in 17 of the areas.
Yeah.
Liberal Democrats, majority of those said Britain should set its own rules.
Yeah. And the lowest number was the Greens, where it was 11 of the categories. So I'm hoping I'm getting all these figures right because I'm doing all this by memory. So as I say, we will put a link, but definitely the message is right. So it's interesting that when you ask a question that isn't, do you still support Brexit? You try to get a little bit under the skin of people and ask them their actual views on ideas of, whether we should be able to take back control, if you want to put it that way. People are in support of UK being able to set its own rules.
Yeah, in the introduction to the report, he talked about regret, didn't he? Regret.
Yes, yeah. I don't know how you pronounce it. Regret, yeah. So whether people have a regret about having voted Brexit, and certainly in the mainstream media, that is the message that comes through all the time. So there's a number, isn't there? 29% of people now. It's only 29% of people now still think that we should have exited the EU.
Yeah, and I love that word regret because originally it was Britain exit, became Brexit, and then Brexit regret became regret. Yeah. So it's like you've taken what do you call that? Is it a portmanteau?
Yes, yeah.
You've taken a portmanteau and then added another word in there. It could just, a continuous chain would be cool. Yeah. And you think 29% of, in the polls, 29% of people would say they would still vote to leave?
I think so. I think that's the number.
I can't believe
Pretty
that.
sure
I don't believe that.
Okay, well.
So I think there are a lot of people that have changed their mind. Yeah. I think there are a lot of people that said, I voted to leave, now I would vote to remain if the vote were again tomorrow. Two things that counter the narrative which a lot of people would like to peddle. Yeah. Like, maybe we should look at going back into the EU, which I think would just be the craziest disaster as a country. But one is that a lot of people have changed their mind that voted to remain, but would now stay out. Yeah. Right? I think you'd be surprised. A lot of people I know. Yeah. And the second thing is that's if there were the vote again tomorrow, if we rehashed the vote, or if it was like a hypothetical, you sort of could change something from the past with a magic wand. I think there are a lot of people now that say, I don't want to leave the EU, but we voted to leave. Let's leave. Let's put the question behind us. Yeah. I think it's true as well for Scottish independence. It's something that Craig Houston, the SDP leader in Scotland, often says. He says, regardless of what you think about Scottish independence, let's just agree to sort of shelve that for 10 years. Yeah. And let's just focus on the things that we can do in Scotland. Yeah. Let's focus on the things we can control. Yeah. And so if we're not actually doing it properly, and I know people on the other side of this will say, what do you mean not doing it properly? You've had every opportunity. Well, the government never once wanted to do this, right? We had a class of people that were, whether they were ideologically attached to the EU or whether they were just had no vision. We haven't really seen what Britain as an independent nation state can really look like. And so if we're not going to do that properly, what's the point? We might as well just put down our tools and sort of give up entirely.
Yeah.
And so I think what the media really misses is that what we need as a country is to move on and say, this is what's happened. Now we're going to unify and bring everybody together.
Yeah.
And a large part, I have to say, and this is on the Leave side, I think a large part of what has gone wrong in terms of just people on the Leave side has not been to say, okay, but there's 48% of people that might be uneasy about this. We need to bring them along with us. And what's really interesting about this report is you can see you can build a coalition of consensus there.
Yeah.
Where people say, actually, yeah, this thing, I want Britain to decide on it.
Yes. Yeah,
That's what excites me.
Absolutely, yeah. So perhaps two things to add to that. One is that I think quite often when people are giving their explanation of why people, to the extent that there is some regret out there, why does that exist? And a lot of people would say it's because people think things have changed too much. They want to go back to the way things were. You know, they don't really like the world that we've ended up in. But I think there is an alternative explanation to this, and this is one that is made in the commentary on the survey, which is that actually people think we haven't taken up those opportunities that Brexit gave us, and actually things haven't changed enough. And if they thought we'd gone through all that heartache to actually carry on much the same as we were, then perhaps they wouldn't have done it. But there's still a hankering and an aspiration that we can take back democratic control over some of those areas that people really want to see that where that democratic control is. I think the other story that I wanted to kind of just tag on to this, if that's okay. I don't know if people saw, Catherine McBride had an article in the Times today about the Euro reset, the great Euro reset. And she is making the point that we now have from the EU their whole list of all the things they want to have control over as part of the reset discussions. And as I understand it, government could make decisions in a lot of these areas without there being any parliamentary scrutiny, any legislative change. They could just agree to this agreement from the EU. And that would be expecting us to do things like give up more of our ability to regulate on employment, on food standards, on agriculture, on fisheries, even more than we already have. And it would require us to make a payment to Europe for the benefit of this. That would all be, judgments on all those areas would be made by European courts. And it would effectively undermine the international agreements that we have already entered into. So to the extent that we are saying that we have an ability to import food from New Zealand, that food from New Zealand would have to be subject to EU regulations. So it undermines those treaties that we have agreed.
And when you talk about the reset, what are you referring to?
So you know that Keir Starmer has already started to have discussions with the EU about, because he wants to reset our relationship. And in some ways, I think, if that just meant, come on, we've got to look forward, not back, I would be in favour of that. Let's stop rehashing what's gone on in the past. Let's look forward and really start to work in a collegiate way going forwards. But I don't think Starmer means that, and I don't think the Labour Party and the government particularly mean that. I think, have in mind that they will effectively take us back into something that looks very much like the customs union, without us having any say over any of those rule-making institutions. So, effectively, the gains that we have had from Brexit, I think, could be further undermined as part of this reset project. And interestingly, what this survey indicates is that would mean the government going against what ordinary people want. So I think now is the time for ordinary people to make sure that government hears the message that absolutely is not what people want the government to be doing. It's not that people regret Brexit and want to go back to the old ways. It was that they They really want to rise to the challenge of, making the world anew in a post-Brexit world.
So are you positive after reading about this, the results of this survey?
I'm really positive about the fact that that is the way that people think. And, a survey's a survey, isn't it? And once it's always helpful to get a few repeats of this kind of message from surveys because, sometimes you get a rogue one.
Well, the sample was like 4,000 people.
4,500, yeah. So it wasn't a tiny sample at all.
Wasn't tiny, but I'm sort of already like, the country have spoken.
Exactly, yeah. Well, to some extent, I am as well. So I'm really positive about the fact that that's the way people think. I am less positive about whether government is listening, and I'm actually very nervous about the fact that government could effectively undo a lot of the changes that have happened that do actually give us opportunities. I think the Great Reset could be the Great Rewind.
Yeah. And I would say to anybody listening, if you want to hear about what some of those opportunities are, we did an episode on Lexit.
We did, yeah.
Which is the left-wing vision for leaving the European Union.
Yeah.
Go and have a look at that.
Absolutely. Do that, yeah. And, to the extent that people can further these debates and conversations in their everyday lives, it will be good to keep talking about these things and make sure that, because I think a lot of the time people think nobody else thinks like I do. And I think, because we're in the SDP and we talk to people who often share some of our views, perhaps we don't feel as isolated as some people do. But I think a lot of people do feel very isolated and they think, I can't say that because nobody else thinks like that. But I think what this survey does is to give us a bit more confidence that actually most people are quite sensible.
Most people are quite sensible.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So trust each other a bit more than perhaps we've become used to.
Yeah.
So that's my news item.
Lovely. Very good.
Good to do a news edition again, isn't it?
It is.
I've missed it a bit.
Yeah. And a shout out to Richard Johnson who commissioned that survey. Absolutely. He has a podcast of his own, which was weird when I met him in person.
Yeah.
I recognise this guy and I realised I've watched his YouTube channel.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody. As always, please do like the podcast, share it, subscribe to it, hit the little bell icon on YouTube, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening.